Hey guys, welcome back to Parkitect. In today's episode, we're going to be going on to the, what are we at, the fourth? No, we're not on fourth. Fifth. We're on the fifth scenario. So this is Coral Caldera. So this is we have to finish this map to continue onto the, more of the campaigns. So the description states a wealthy entrepreneur has purchased this idyllic caldera in the middle of the ocean, wishes to turn it into a blistering attraction. Blustering attraction. Park entrance needs to remain free. Okay, so I said in the last episode I wanted to theme this to like Jurassic World type of thing because I feel like the island is fitting for making some dinosaurs and stuff. So the goals so far seem pretty solid. Overall park rating at 70%. That seems achievable. Sell at least 800 park tickets. Achievable. And then 2 optionals, complete by year 2, probably won't do that. Sell 400 park tickets. So I'm assuming I'm going to get that first, and that has some type of goal. But let's just jump in and see what the map provides me and what scenery objects I get to play with. Let's go on pause. We do start with $28,000. That's actually more than Maple Meadows. Maple Meadows started off with 25, so it's more. So I'm going to guess. Oh yeah, we do. Oh, we unlocked the steel coaster. Ooh, I gotta keep my eye on that then. Yeah, okay. That's how it unlocks that. Got it. Okay. So I think Silverette made this level. And a Caldera is a crater. Yeah, this is like a crater from some meteor and it just turned into an island. It looks pretty large. It's actually a large play space, actually. And I like the use of the spooky trees as jungle type of trees. We're like somewhere in the middle of the ocean, but I like the decoration for the depot. It's a very typical, I don't know, warehouse you want to call it. So the guests up here, I'm assuming spawn here. They come out, walk around. He used these tire barriers as oil containers. That's smart. I've done that before too. This lighthouse is pretty nice. I like how this is done. I've pulled this technique from him so many times, this chimney, and used it as a window. It looks like a window and it works really well. So there's a chimney. Looks like it's all done by hand. Looks pretty solid. I like it. Looks really good. Speaking of scenery, I'm looking at it now. See what we got. It looks like we got a lot of choices. Ooh, it looks like we got a lot. We got a lot here. Ooh, we got basalt pillars, yes. Ooh, Dino Idol. Ooh, we can do some stuff with that. I can make some statues. Yeah, it looks like we got a good selection of scenery. I didn't expect this to be that a lot, actually. This is good. This is really good. So my idea for Jurassic Park, Jurassic World type of thing could happen easily. Yeah, shapes are normal. But I'm really excited for the temple pieces. Yeah, I'm going to use these for tile roofing and other things, maybe some ramps to enclosures. So the idea is to theme roller coasters as dinosaurs maybe, and then flat rides as your supporting things, and we'll make it very dinosaur themed. So I'm assuming, let's see what the flat rides we get. Oh yeah, carousel, wave swinger, bumper cars, teacups. So see, like the teacups could be themed to like a dinosaur. We just have to color it right and then maybe decorate the teapot. The carousel could be covered into something like a thatched roof or something. Same thing with the bumper cars. Wave swing has to be open because it's quite large. Enterprise and a swinging ship. Swinging ship would be interesting to theme it to a dinosaur. It's kind of hard because the ship is quite piratey. Junior coaster, wild mouse. Oh darn, this is not good choices. I would like some better choices, but sounds like I would have to research off the bat for roller coasters. Monorail, that's very typical for this map. And then log flume and paddle boats. Okay, so these are good enough choices, I would say. What's our food options? Bubble tea, that's a good one. Chinese food, ooh, that's interesting. Hot dogs, typical. Toilets, umbrellas, and vending machines. Okay. I do realize that this is sitting way out here, so that means... so there's a pipe for us to play with. It's already there for us. Okay. The main goal would be to get rid of this, make this nicer, maybe fix this one over here too, just to make it look more Jurassic World-y like. But yeah, this is gonna be fun. I'm gonna have a blast doing it. So let's get on to building this Jurassic World, Jurassic Park theme. Okay, let's get on to building and designing my Jurassic World knockoff, which is going to be called Jurassic Kingdom, because it was a kind of fitting tale to tell it, or just a better, not a better title, but it's just a different title. Instead of saying Jurassic World, just say Jurassic Kingdom, because that actually works out to be a pretty nice name, I would say. So at this point, the first thing first is to cover up said tunnel from the entrance, because again, you guys heard me talk about this dozens of times. I do not like the tunnels from Parkitect. I was just actually having a discussion on the Discord about if they were either circle or colorable in both ways, it would be better use of them, because honestly, I wish I could just color them. If you just can just give them option to be recolored to a different color, I think it would make them a little bit more easier to deal with than just that gray tone, because that gray is very bright. So onto this, I don't know, this building's kind of a visitor's entrance in a way, not really too detailed, but it was kind of my test build to figure out what the architecture would be in Jurassic Park, Jurassic World, basically, because the architecture in that park is kind of a mishmash between modern and tribal, and, well, I mean, I don't know if you call it dinosaur theme, but there's other weird themes and stuff like that. So this was kind of my test run, and I wanted to make sure that the roofs were overhang so that it gives that detail, and then I used chimney pieces to have those supports for like the concrete, because I noticed that in Jurassic Park it's a lot of concrete buildings with thatched roofing, which makes no sense, but it looks interesting. So I wanted to kind of do that a little bit, but the whole main theme for this park was to make it Jurassic World-esque theming. It was supposed to have all the blues, the thatched roofing, see what other colors. There's gray tones in the Jurassic World stuff. Jurassic World Evolution actually gave me a whole bunch of inspiration, because that game has buildings that I've never seen in the movies, so it's actually quite easy to kind of bounce from that and use that to my advantage. And so ArtStation helped with that, making all the little buildings and all that cool stuff. So the first building I wanted to build over here was a bathroom with a vending machine. So I'm going to keep it the same roof style as the first building, but just kind of make it a little different. I also wanted to do some pillar shenanigans, and this is the way to try to make your buildings not as square, by using pillars offset to get that impression that the building is bigger than a grid unit. That's kind of, I think, the trick is that most buildings in Parkitect are all stuck on grid. So the walls are stuck on grid and the roofs are stuck on grid. If you build those walls all the way up to the roof, it kind of makes it look like a boxy building with a diagonal roof or a steeped roof, and it kind of looks funny. So it's easier to kind of mess around with the pillars and give that impression that it's overhanging. Down the boulevard, I wanted to do some Jurassic dino signs, and which is really cool that one of the props in game is a temple adventure banner that has a dinosaur on it. So that's the symbol for Taxelraptor, the company that made the game. So it's kind of fitting for my theme, and this worked out really well. So Jurassic Kingdom is basically a knockoff of Jurassic World, which is now owned by Happy Co. So now this is in Parkitect lore now. So Jurassic Kingdom is owned by Happy Co. And easily that's what's going to be. So I just wanted to make a simple sign. I used candy canes as the support beams with a little candy cane like arch, and actually looked out really well, and I like where the banners sit, and they're perfectly on the corner of a grid piece that the guests won't go through it. They will walk around it, and it's they're perfect. They might clip a little bit with their heads, but they're just perfect where they sit. So on to the second building. Now, basically the first section of this park was basically just building infrastructure, and built, I think, two rides maybe? No, 3 rides. I might have just built 3 rides before I ran out of money. Because 25k is really not a lot of money, and you know how heavy detailed I am, so I went a little crazy, but I wanted to get the atmosphere right for the Jurassic Park stuff, so that's what I did. So this is going to be the first restaurant. This is going to be called Dino Bites, and we put down a bubble tea and a hot dog stand, and then our first depot. There is a delivery pipe that came out from the main depot, so that's great to use that. Most of it was built, so I just had to connect it. And this building just needed to be more modern architecture. I don't like modern architecture. I think it's very boring, but I'll give Parkitect that strength because Parkitect can easily do modern architecture because how square-based the game is, and so this helped a lot in that way. And I did like how it matches the other buildings there. It's kind of like an upgrade from the others, so it's like an evolution between the buildings. And so I have a set of different styles of buildings in this map, but they all kind of cohesively fit together. That's always the hard part, trying to find a theme that you can easily make different buildings, but they're cohesive with each other. So it's been a challenge, but practice seems to be the solution here. So I encourage you all to try to make your buildings different, give themselves characteristics or personalities, and then hopefully make sure that they're cohesive. Like they have to share either a material type or roof type, or maybe a pillar type, something of that nature. They have to kind of share. So it's kind of what I did here with this building. It shares the same roof as the thatched roof as the restroom, and then the main roof is just flat because I'm going to put AC units on top because guests don't get to see it. Only I do, so AC units will be put up there. And then on to build the sign. I was actually surprised how well the sign actually turned out with the limited placement of vanilla. So the windows are used as backdrop, and then Dino Bites was put in, and then I was able to size it and then space it just perfectly to measure out and put in the Dino Bites, or the dino head right there, and it says Dino Bites. I think that was the perfect way to use the text engine. It was just perfect. AC units were differently designed this round just to make this map a little bit different from my others. So I think the AC units were made of a cube, a peppermint piece, and then a different gear to simulate a different type of fan. And the park, I just opened the park, looks like, and the Enterprise needs to be themed a little bit. Honestly, Enterprises are very hard to theme, and I've seen Syl theme one before. I think he was in Coaster Canyon, and he did like a steampunk theme, and that worked out. But this, in this case, was not going to work, so I just kind of left most of the ride not decorated, except for I made a custom fence around it, and then I made a cover for the queue, and then I kind of called it a day. Because I needed a ride off the bat that was very, not necessarily high capacity, but high enough in, I think, intensity to get the money rolling in. So on to the first, coaster. This is going to be my junior coaster. At this point, I built a junior coaster in every map except for Western Roundup. So I expect to build more junior coasters throughout the campaign, apparently, because I think these are the coasters that are available from the get-go, from whenever you open up the map, so it's going to be like that. So the main idea was to make an exhibit with the coaster in it, kind of like Velocicoaster, but not being Velocicoaster just yet. So I kind of just needed a coaster to start making money, because I have $7 grand right now, and $7 grand is actually not a lot for what I want to do, because I still have to decorate the building, I gotta decorate the area, and I know that trees and rocks take up most of my budget, and then walls are pretty pricey, and then me with the being shape heavy, I take up a lot of those shapes, and so it takes up a lot of my budget, so that's what's going to happen. But at least I can have the coaster open while I build the station, because the guests don't care. So this is great for me. The station. Well, how do I explain what the station is going to design? So in some of the concept art that I found for Jurassic World Evolution, there's this one building that was a square version of the visitor center. So instead of round walls and round roofs, I found a square version, and I'm like, okay, well that actually works. Let's make a square version of the visitor center, because it is down the straightaway of my boulevard. It's literally at the end of the boulevard, or the avenue. So I can just imagine in my head, I'm walking up through the tunnels, I exit out of that little building at the end of the boulevard, and I see the visitor center down the center. I think that was the perfect spot for it. I was like, oh well, this is kind of convenient. So this is kind of a happy accident how I positioned most of my rides, and it actually worked out really well. So first comes up the walls, figuring out how high I want it. Then I need to figure out where the roofs will start forming, and kind of just make it very, I don't know, modern, with a little bit of like tropical flair. That's what I think Jurassic Park or Jurassic World architecture is like it's modern with a tropical flair, which is the weirdest architecture I can ever describe, but it's very iconic. I don't know, it's just iconic about it because both of the movies have their own styles and I appreciate both of them. I'm gonna miss some of the Jurassic World stuff because the new movie comes out I think in June, Jurassic World Dominion, and they're gonna stay mostly on the mainland and away from the park, so it's kind of sad that we kind of left that already, but it is what it is. So here's the two roofs that I'm going to try to make. So there's a pyramid roof in the center and then a offset off to the side. So to make it look like it's overhanging, I stuck cubes, I think 0.50 or 1. I think they're size 1. And I stuck them on grid 8 and pushed them in a little bit to give this sense of overhang. And it kind of breaks up the squareness of this building a little bit, kind of helps. And I like this look a lot. And I'm going to use this technique with the making false walls out of cubes, because I don't have to follow the grid at that point. I can make them smaller squares and offset off the grid, and it works out here for this building especially, so I enjoyed that a lot, and it looks really nice. I made custom windows in the front with squares and pillars, and then I needed to add some more decoration on this main front of the building. I don't know what you're going to call it, arch, grand doorway. I made some different type of AC units out of the chimney pieces from the Halloween set. And then, of course, I need banners to kind of help connect that with the rest of the boulevard with those dinosaur banners. And then on to building a electrical fence. Now, the electrical fence is actually a very simple build. It's just a wall, pillars, and borders stacked on top of each other at, I think, 0.25 increments or whatever the game forces me down to. And sometimes when simple designs like this work out, they work out really well. And you don't have to always overcomplicate your stuff. If it works and portrays what you're trying to make, so this fence, if someone comes to me and says, "Oh, that's electric fence," and I didn't have to explain it to them, then I did a good job on portraying that item. So I encourage you all to try that. You don't always have to overcomplicate things. Sometimes simple is very efficient. That's how I want to put it. Yeah. Simple is sometimes very efficient and well designed. Don't need to reinvent the wheel, basically. While I was building the electrical fence, I felt like I needed a flat ride to kind of fill this area in. I've noticed that I'm using flat rides as a filler for weird spaces that I don't fill up with scenery or trees. So this teacups kind of did that. Its job was to fill this corner because I've made the fence and I lined it up against the back. I'm like, okay, well now I need something over here. So I need guests to walk over here and kind of enjoy themselves. And I didn't have a calm ride yet, so this was the solution. Build a very simple teacups and cover it, have the roof match the other roofs in the area, because that's the cohesiveness that I'm trying to do, so that's the objective. And then I added these cylinders for an additional structure support for the beams. I wish these wooden poles were colorable, or we had an option of a horizontal one. That would be nice, but we don't. On to more detailing, like so, for example, I needed to build a maintenance shed for the junior coaster, and this actually worked out to be a very decorated maintenance shed, because the maintenance shed is going to be next to guests' paths for the foreseeable future, and so it made sense to kind of decorate this over the top a little bit like the station. Now this building is supposed to represent a dino docking bay, because I saw a picture on the concept art for Jurassic World Evolution that it's like so there's a watchtower and there's a doorway, and that's where the dinos would get checked and then released into the main pen, and then there you go, you got an exhibit. So I kind of wanted to make the building kind of the same, kind of to match the station, and give it that industrial, and then with a little bit of a tropical flair. Which it's again the building style in Parkitect in Jurassic World is just weird in general. So I kind of did the same thing here. So that's what I did. So just adding some more details on this little building, giving it its flair. So these little angled concrete slabs is the personality I want to give it. This overhanging roof near the pathway where the guests are is more personality. And then I have the transfer track sliding switch ready to go. I have to build this another piece of track, but I do that later after I get more money. But I'm continuing also with more of the electric fence, and then basically the whole coaster is encased in an electric fence, which is the point. So yeah, I'm gonna let you go, and we're gonna go see how the park is operating at the moment. I'll show you some of the upcoming features and plans I want to do to the park. So I'll meet you over there. Okay, let's go see how the park is doing at the moment and see where we're going to get to and up the next phases of the park. And so far, I'm liking layout. I'm liking how the buildings are kind of fitting well. I didn't realize how well this scenario would fit the Jurassic World theming. And it works really well, especially with this big, giant mountain border around the park. Actually helps with the idea of like this is a sanctuary in a way. So I'm going to show you the first couple things. So the guests come out of here. That's good. Cover up that nasty looking tunnel. And then made our first little restaurant, Dino Bites, with our restrooms. And then Enterprise. Enterprises are very hard to kind of theme around, and so this kind of was fitting to be kind of the centerpiece over here in the beginning. And then as you walk down the boulevard, you end up to this building, which represents the main building from the first movie. So this is like the visitor center, but kind of my own version with some type of, well, with some detailing and traits of that building, kind of make my own version. This is kind of like a knockoff version of Jurassic Park because I'm using the Raptor logo from the game. So it kind of works out that Taxel Raptor, the logo, works for a Jurassic Park theming. So I'm going to kind of keep an eye on that, use that piece as often as I can. Over here, this is supposed to be, so the Junior Coaster is supposed to be themed to like there's a dinosaur called a Compy. I don't know the full technical name because dinosaur names are hard. And Compies are like these little chicken-sized lizards that are scavengers, and they're green. They have like long tails. They look like little raptors, but they're not raptors. And so I want to theme that to this coast. This coaster is going to be themed to Compies, and that's why I have these pile of bones here. I'm probably going to build some creatures here, here, and here. I will see how small I can make them, especially how small the shapes can be, and then see how that works out. And I'm probably going to change the color of the trains. And then I think I'm going to add a catwalk on this side, on the other side of the lift. Yeah, I'm going to add some catwalks. And then over here is the maintenance shed for the coaster and the transfer track. This area is kind of ready for expansion, so this area could be a copy of the Jurassic World ride at Universal. So I want to make a water ride, and it looks like I don't get any other type of water rides. So I get log, paddle boats, and splash boats. So log ride it is. So I'm going to make a log ride. I was hoping for a water coaster, but I will make a log ride version of the Jurassic Park ride at Universal. I'll just make that. I'll make the giant concrete building and the drop, and then maybe make a cutaway and have a T-Rex in it. I'm not really sure yet, but I can expand this water and make that over here, because this kind of fits. Yeah, because the one in Universal Hollywood, that building sits on the mountain. That's why you have to go up. So it would go up the chain lift, turn around, drop, and come out. This is perfect, actually. This is the perfect area for it. Yeah, and this may have a reason for this path to exist. And this is an area to kind of hide and relax and then watch the coaster from here. So that's also good. So we have the log flume. So I'm going to be building a log flume. I promise you this. I will build this log flume. I want to build an inverted spinning unless I get something else. So let me do some research on more coasters. If a coaster comes up that I like, I might do not a replica, but a inspiration of like Velocicoaster in this area too. This Dodgems is going to move over here. Actually, I call it Dodgems, actually called bumper cars, but Dodgems. I'm going to move this actually over here. How big is this? How big is the plot of land for the bumper cars? 5 and a 4. So I want to move it because I'm going to make a arcade over here. So let's just do the measurements. So it's a 5 and a 4. So 4. So it would be 4 and then 5. Yeah, that's a 4 or 5. Okay, that's perfect. It's exactly the length. And then we'll get rid of some of these trees. So yeah, if I build the arcade in the shape of this and hide some, maybe an additional restaurant or gift shop, I can do it. And then make this a backstage area. Maybe get rid of the water. Not really sure yet. Let's see here. Goal-wise, I did not make the oh my god, the goals December goal. Didn't make that. I knew I wasn't gonna make it. The next goal is gonna be the 800 park tickets. I'm at 558, so I'm roughly around 200 something. That's what needs to come back. No, not 200. Yeah, 200 something. More than, yeah, 200 something. I don't know the exact math. I'm not gonna do it, but it seems like that we'll get there, and then that completes the map. But so far, I'm going to finish the park off by building the Jurassic Park water ride, and then Velocicoaster maybe in this area. Yeah. We'll do that. We'll build it like right here because that would fit after I move this building over here. So yeah, let's just get on to the next steps. And we'll just get on building. Let's go. Okay, first things first is to move the Dodgems. I'm going to keep calling it Dodgems. Ugh, I said it in the break that I called it Dodgems, but it's fine. I'm going to call it Dodgems. So this building needed to become a arcade style building. Now this building, I just realized, is very different from the rest of the buildings. And I know I was talking about in my first time lapse about cohesion, and this building actually doesn't match that in my opinion. The only thing it matches is the colors. But I wanted to make a very arcadey looking building to especially hide this Dodgems, and so I kind of leaned into it. There was one picture I found from the Jurassic World Evolution of a arcade building, and it was very retro, very 80s looking building. So I kind of did the same thing here. So very boxy building, and then had these weird triangular bits off the front, and it kind of was just kind of retro looking. And I called it the Triceratops Arcade, so it is dinos themed very loosely. But I wanted just a end cap this back area because the water back there is going to go. That becomes a backstage area for the park, and it just was kind of fitting to kind of finish off this corner with these buildings to kind of just cap it off. So I did that, and this is actually a perfect opportunity to add a new restroom because the restroom up at the front of the park is already a long distance away. So I didn't want to have my guests walk all the way back to go to the restroom, so might as well put one here. And so I put one on the side of the building, and it worked out really well. So I do like this style of building. It, as I explained before, it doesn't really scream cohesion with the rest of the buildings, except for maybe the AC units are the same, or a little different style, but they're using the same pieces. So I do like what it looks like, how it looks. I do enjoy it, and I think it works well enough. And so I'm just doing some border shenanigans here, doing some weird, these triangular things. I don't know what you would call them. They're just weird design things. I think they get your attention though when you walk around the corner. You just imagine, you walk around the corner, you see this little weird looking retro building. You're like, oh, okay, so this is the arcade. Okay, well, let me go inside and go play some video games and or go on the Dodgems ride and just do it. And then there you go. So this is basically what it is. It's very retro, so a lot of checkered, those are the checkered pieces I use with those squares. And then so I just wanted it to just basically make a very retro looking building. And then the front of the sign will be called Triceratops Arcade. Again, I've said this before. Here's some backstage shenanigans. This actually worked out because I needed that back pathway for the employees to kind of just walk around, and then the one just connects to nothingness basically. Actually, that pathway, the door of the back of the arcade actually goes all the way down the back of the building and then connects to the main path. So it just gives my employees more access in places. So that's what I will do. So here's the sign again. I'm doing that same shenanigans I've done with the other sign, but this is a little different because the word Triceratops is very long. Most dinosaur names are very long, and so that doesn't help with signage because signs get really gigantic and off-putting, and so I was like, okay, I gotta be careful how I do this. So it says Triceratops Arcade and then a little shape on top, and I'm gonna put a very rough representation of a Triceratops' head. And this was kind of challenging with the shape, especially with how vanilla is. It was very, very hard to kind of figure that out. So yeah, I will show you how I figure it out with shapes. But it was a very difficult thing. It took me a good, I want to say 30 minutes to figure it out. So I did some discs to kind of figure out the armor part of the head, like the crown part, and then some cylinders and some spheres to make the nose, and then the horns were going to be out of shapes, but then I found another way to use the text engine for the slash as horns. You'll see that in a second. And I kind of just was messing around, kind of make it look cartoony, because I might as well lean into it, because Parkitect is very cartoony graphics, so I'm going to just lean into it a little bit, and then I got this little look, and there's its eyes. For the longest time it was just black little dots, and that kind of looked odd looking and kind of off-putting because it was just kind of like, look into my soul. I'm a Tyrannosaurus's head on a post. I'm like, it's a little scary. So I decided to give it a little bit of a white detail to it later with another sphere, interlocking them together. So I'm just here, I'm fiddling with this too long. Like, honestly, it took a while to figure out. See, if with Construction Anarchy I would have easily made it more detailed and had the space to do it, but I'm in vanilla, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult. So I'm just testing out different fonts for the horns, and that worked out so far what it looks, and I'm like, okay, these are horns. I'm just going to keep them as is and just call it a day, because it really doesn't have to be that super detailed. Because I'm still trying to make money in this park, trying to continue on to make the dough, so continue to make some parks. I see the little white eyes actually helped out in that aspect. So we're jumping on to building the log ride, and this is not your typical log ride because I'm gonna make this look like the Jurassic Park ride at Universal, the water ride. So I'm just kind of do the same bit, just a little difference here and there. And this log ride is super duper, like, really long. It just doesn't need to be this long, but I wanted to give it that Jurassic Park look and that feel, so I just utilized it as a river adventure type of way. So layout's actually very easy, very simple loop. It's nothing crazy, but the point is to do the super detailing stuff and the scenery shenanigans, so that's what I'm going to do in this round. And then figure out a building for that structure. So I didn't ultimately build a cutaway for the building because I was feeling a little lazy. And I built one dinosaur and I found out how hard it is in vanilla. It depends on the scale of the creature. It might be easier in some places, but I didn't really want to fight vanilla. I've done creatures before in vanilla. I just wasn't feeling it this round, so I kind of just left it as is, so I didn't make a cutaway, unfortunately. But I did finish the building, and the building's quite complete, and it does look like the building from Jurassic Park, or from Universal, so I kind of just made it very similar. And there goes the confetti. So yeah, this map, man oh man, I played on this map for a long time, so at the end of this time lapse and you're gonna see the tour of the place. I basically spent 12 in-game years in this map, so that's roughly I think 12 to 14 hours in-game that I spent on this park. I've done this before in some of my other playthroughs, but yeah, I spent a long time on this map because I really wanted to just overly detail it with stuff, and so that's kind of what I spent most of my time, was decorating, filling in spaces of different place of things, and there you go. So I'm just trying to figure out how to make the top of the building and not make it so square based. I try to stay away from giant structures of rectangles sometimes because I think that makes it look very ugly or ominous. So I'm going to try to do that the best I can with this building. And I think I did add some diagonal bits to it and this interesting concrete like square bit that the building has. I saw some pictures and I was like, this is a cool little technique. Can I pull this off into vanilla? And I'm like, oh, I can. So I think the sizes of the squares are, I don't remember, 0.55 maybe? Maybe not. You have to experiment to kind of get that gapping just right. Because I'm trying to manipulate using this different sizes of squares. And when you start stacking them, that gap will appear between them. Because I know there's bricks that will be perfectly stacked when you perfectly connected when you stack them. So like 0.25, when you start stacking them, they will be perfectly connected no matter what. But if you go to 0.30, well, 0.30 will also work too. What's the other number that won't work? It would be like 0.60, 0.70. If you start stacking them, they'll have a little gap in between each cube. And so that's what I was trying to go for. Trying to force that gap to happen. And I kind of worked out here, especially on the diagonal. That was hard too, on that slope part. Man, that was a pain. That was a pain, man. But it worked really well, and I liked the look of it. So yeah, there's the building, a little smaller. I did scale it down. That actually worked out better because it was too long. It just looked really ominous, and I didn't have to make it that big, so I kind of made it smaller. So it worked out, and I don't know, the design of the building's kind of funny. I don't know what the point of the building is. Oh, I know the point it is in the park, in Universal. I know what the reason is. It's because of, it has to go up a hill, and so they built the structure on top. But in like Jurassic Park lore, it's supposed to be like a water pump station or something. So maybe that's what it is. Kind of weird, but oh well, it works. I mean, it's a very industrial looking building, but I like it. I like this big side of it, and so I think I put the words "When dinosaurs ruled the earth" on the side of it, just to give it some more dino theming. Yeah, here comes the sign. When dinosaurs ruled the earth. That seems fitting, and have the color in blue just because I'm following the same color scheme as Jurassic World. So this is kind of a cool picture spot for a guest if you think about it. Funny thing is, guests ignore scenery when they're watching a ride. So I've had a pile of guests at the bottom of the building just staring at the building, and I click on them like, oh, they're watching the ride. Oh, okay, but it kind of looks funny because it looks like they're just looking at the building or reading the sign. Like, oh, you guys are reading my sign, thanks. That's so lovely of you. But no, they're staring through they're staring at the ride through the walls because all the guests in Parkitect have X-ray vision. So it's just kind of funny. Like they just stare into the building. They do it at the fences too around the Jurassicoaster. They all kind of just look through the fence, even though there's a wall. But walls really don't prevent line of sight. They only prevent line of sight with negative deco. That's it. That's all they do, and I didn't realize that they would go through. They just stare through the walls, so I think it's funny. So yeah, keep in mind on that. Like if you want to make something that look like the guests are looking at a painting or a mural, make a ride behind it. Maybe they'll watch it and it looks like they're looking at a mural. I don't know. It's kind of a cool little trick, but that's what I kind of found it funny. The last finishing touch on the building was to build a Jurassic Kingdom sign. I was going to try to make it copy like the actual movie, and then I didn't like how the raptor head kind of sinks inside it, and it's like it didn't look good to me, so I just made it straight out and I fixed it I think about a second later, or I fix it off screen. I don't know, but I think it looks better straight out. So that's what I did. This ride actually took yeah, there, fix it right there. I think that looks better, honestly. Sometimes when you build something, let it sit and stew in your head. You build it, back off from it, look at it, be like, okay, do I love it? Do I like it? Do I hate it? Give yourself a moment, and then if you really need to change it, change it. So it's always about feeling it out and just kind of taking it nice and slow. Even though it looks like, as from your guys' perspective, because I've heard this from other players, that I build really fast. I mean, yeah, I do build fast, but I don't at the same time. I have, how do I say, my process has been efficient in some places. I've made my process better than before. In the beginning of when I played Parkitect, my process was really slow, and I was very indecisive in places and pieces, and so it looks like I'm pretty fast only because I picked up on my workout. How do I describe the word? It's not work. The way how I work, my work ethic. I know how to get through it. It does take practice in your workflow. That's the word I'm looking for. Workflow. So you'll figure out in your workflow eventually. Don't panic that your workflow is very slow right now, or it's maybe just medium speed. Don't worry about it. Just keep building, keep designing, keep experimenting, and you'll get something. So that's what I encourage all you to try to do, is that stuff. So the workflow will come eventually. As I rambled about workflow, there's a building being erected for the station. So I wanted to make this station kind of resemble the retro part of Jurassic Park. So I'm suggesting that this ride was here first, maybe, in the park's construction. But I don't know. I'm not really keen on the lore of my park, but I kind of was giving that impression. And I needed an additional restaurant back here, so this was kind of fitting to have the queue kind of go into the building a little bit, and then go into the metal cover building, or roof area. And this building's going to be very retro Jurassic Park building, so it's terracotta looking structure, concrete. I think it's concrete, not terracotta. That's clay. No, it's like concrete with the thatch roofing on it again, and then a little bit of a copper color to it, because I saw some like copper designs in some of the other buildings. So that's what I did here at this point. So yeah, there's the roofing. Just wanted to make it very, I don't know, thatched roofy, temple-like. I called the log ride Jurassic Kingdom. I think I just called it Jurassic Kingdom. I should have called it Jurassic Kingdom River Adventure. I might have to change that name. Yeah, I might just do that before I drop it on the workshop. Yep. So inside is just some other... Well, I'm just finishing up the building at this point. Detailing with cubes. Those copper pieces are chocolate bars flipped backwards, because they have a shiny tint to them. So that actually worked out in that way. So that worked out. And then, oh yeah, I added a balloon stand just to add some other things for guests to walk around with. For some reason, the guests in this park don't buy balloons. I don't know if it was because I priced them higher, or they just don't. They were so happy that they don't need the balloons. Because I know that balloons give happiness whenever guests buy them. So I don't know. It just was a weird kind of thing that guests weren't really buying the balloons. But it is what it is. I'm not really that worried about it. So I wanted to build this thatched roof in the center of the building. And I wanted to make overhang again, so I used a cylinder to kind of make it smaller than the grid space it sits in, and then that actually worked out to give it some more interest, because I think that's what vanilla Parkitect struggles in, is that roofs are not overhanging. And in reality, there's a lot of buildings in our world that have overhanging roofs, and I wanted to get that impression of that in here, so I did the same. So I made a very simple looking thatched roof. I like this cylinder technique, or the disc technique on it, to make it look like it's interwoven with each other, and it actually looked really nice. I didn't realize that was a way to go, so I'm so I'm so surprised how often not often. It's I'm surprised I find new techniques after, I don't know, 3,800 hours of this game. I'm still finding new techniques in this game, and it's kind of funny, and I like it. So um, it's wild. So on to actually decorating the Jurassic Kingdom River Adventure. So I wanted to make a sign suggesting this was the Brachiosaurus Valley. So I just made a very simple sign, made a very concrete arch, and then suggest that this is like a retractable gate or something that you go through, and then the boats go in. And then to the first dinosaur, the only dinosaur I get to build in this park actually is a Brachiosaurus, which was actually very easier to build because I knew I was going to use spheres to kind of build it, and it worked out in the end. There's a cool little technique with the trees. I use the tilia bush as filler, and that I only use the tilia bush because it moves in the wind like the trees, so it's not really that off-putting to put them in the air. Because if you put a regular bush in the air, it doesn't move and it kind of looks weird. Or you try to put it in another tree, it looks weird. So I've used the tilia bush before and made giant trees out of them before, which is actually a cool technique. And it makes the impression that the tree is moving in the wind. So I did the same with these bushes and the other trees. You can kind of see around the tilia bush kind of sitting in there. As the dinosaur is being constructed, I use cylinders and spheres for the neck of the dino, and I just made a very basic head of a Brachiosaurus, not really focused on making it accurate enough, but good enough to be a Brachiosaurus. I don't know how you would describe it, but I think it looks like a dinosaur to me. Because the last time I built dinosaurs was Coaster Bee for his Universal Park, or CB Studios, I think it was called. So it's the last time I did that. It's been a while. And then I'm glad that I had these vines, so it suggests that the dino is eating. I was surprised how much scenery options I had in this scenario. Like, I had almost every bit except for the Fantasy Pack, but Fantasy Pack's kind of boring. I don't really use it a lot. I use Adventure Pack and Candyland a lot because those pieces are just phenomenal. And then I use the shapes, so. There's our dino, and then just more decorations around the bushes, and plants, and water, and then basalt pillars add some more interest. Then I needed to finish the dino's back ridge of its body, so these are like little bumps. I'm not sure, this is like the spine, basically, to give some texture. And then I added some, I don't know if I see it in the time-lapse, but I added some pipes connected to it, suggesting it's an animatronic. So, yeah, I did that too. Just to add some more realism to it. And, yeah. Oh, yeah, I do show you pipes. Look at that. There you go. Pipes, they connect, and then there you go. It's a animatronic dinosaur. So, let's jump on to the last build, because I did some more detailing on the River Adventure off-screen. And I needed to build my last coaster, and this actually had to fill in this entire area, so I built a very basic steel coaster, but it's more like a, well, not like, it's a homage to Velocicoaster. So I wanted to use a spinning coaster track, but that didn't work out because I didn't want trains to spin. I like the track type, but it was like it's not gonna work. So I'll just stick with the steel coaster. Make it do helixes and turns, and maybe do 2 inversions, and then kind of make it sit tight in this area. I kind of made a fence line where the electric fence will be later, and then kind of just kept it there, and then voila, there you go. There's a Velocicoaster inspired layout. And then I did some weird shenanigans here. I couldn't get back to the station, so I was like, well, now I have to go through the ground. I didn't want to delete more of the roundabout of the mountain of the crater, and so I had to just make sure that it wasn't disrupted as much. So I did a underground section, and I found a way to cover up that section with a building. I don't think you see it in the time lapse because I built that off screen. It was a very boring building, very square. But yeah, there's a Velocicoaster type style coaster, and this coaster actually makes me a lot of money. It's ridiculous how much it makes me. So I think I priced most of my rides at, yeah, the coaster's at 12, the junior coaster's at 10. They're pretty good, and I also wanted to try to do some diagonal buildings for the Velocicoaster. I wanted to make that entrance kind of resemble the ride from Jurassic or from Universal, so kind of did that too. And oh yeah, the electric fences here are different because when I looked at pictures of Velocicoaster, they're like concrete with rebar with iron struts on them, so it's a completely different structure. So I was like, well, that's fitting. Might as well make them different from my traditional electric fence. So I did that, and I made some little gaps in between, suggesting these are viewing spots. Oh, I should put some camera spots down. I might have to do that later. So I just made little cuts, and then made some concrete walls, and then did some square stuff. I looked at, I looked at some Velocicoaster stuff. And then I also looked at some fences that I googled, and I just kind of copied the fence design. It just kind of just reference shots. I just went collecting the whole time. So that's what I did. And you can kind of just see how it looks. And see, there's the gas right there. He's just looking like, oh, this is a cool ride. I want to go on it next. And he just goes. So, gotcha. Now you're going to pay $12 to ride this ride. I don't know if I would spend $12 to ride a roller coaster because I've been to theme parks and I just don't think $12 is worth a roller coaster. But in Parkitect, as I am a capitalist, I will do so. I will charge you guys a arm and a leg to ride my coaster. So it's gonna happen. So the top of the fence is a steampunk pillar to kind of make it more industrial looking, so that's what I did there. And then the entrance area is kind of made of shapes and squares and cubes, all that good stuff. And then we kind of went from there. So I'm just going to jump around from place to place, kind of filling in details. And then I needed to fill in this whole exhibit to be like the rocky structure of the Velocicoaster. So I want to describe that a little bit because you might not see it on screen because I kind of got lazy recording. I have like 12 hours of footage, so. The structures and the rocks inside were made of regular rocks, and I made cubes at 45 to kind of make them look angled and kind of like the Velocicoaster. I kind of did that. You'll see that in the live tour. The diagonal building here is the entrance. I kind of messed with that. You can see how I'm going to figure out how to place that all together. And it was a way to kind of cover up the path because diagonal paths in Parkitect are kind of ugly with those corners, so I found a way to kind of cover that up and make it look more organic. So I figured that out quite well. And yeah, this is where basically they're just doing the little things here and there for the Velocicoaster. And I made a giant building to kind of house the area. I think you're going to see that in just about a couple seconds. Yeah, here you go. Jump ahead. Add some window detailing, suggesting that these are windows. Maybe guests get to see the ride from that perspective. And then a watchtower for the Velocicoaster. So I'm just kind of copying basically from Velocicoaster at Universal. Just kind of doing beat for beat, but my own design. Or just more simpler to design, just to kind of finish it off. So I did some pillar shenanigans over here to kind of suggest this is a launch cage or something for the Velociraptors, or you. Well, again, the whole story of Velocicoaster is that you ride this coaster with the Velociraptors. That was the whole point. Which is a weird story, but I kind of dig it. I kind of like how it works, so I appreciate it. So there's the tower. There's the other thing. So yeah, I'm going to leave you guys here. We're going to go switch over to the live tour. I'm going to show you all what the park has offered. And then we'll wrap it up, basically. So I'll see you over at the live tour. Okay, welcome to Coral Caldera, or as I like to call it, Jurassic Kingdom, because I decided to basically give this park a actual retheme in a way. So I'm just going to show you around the park as it's completed and all its little goodies and all that cool things. So let's just get on to... So I made this little gate piece here out of shapes and some other things. So this is text. I think this is a chocolate bar that's backwards, yeah. And then some little flame or torch pieces. So right now let's just go on to the first section. So I did beat the goal. Let's go look at the goal actually first. So I completed this goal. This map has been a long time coming. It's about 14 years in game, so it's about a 14-hour map that I just had too much fun working on it. Honestly, it's just so much things to go do and detailing, all that cool stuff. So that's what I did. And so here's the front area of the park. The guests come out of this, like, I want to say like just a little building. I don't know what type of building this would be, like a guest relations building. Connects from the front. The first building off to the right-hand side would be restrooms with a vending machine, and then Dino Bites is the main restaurant in the whole park. I wanted to make this park feel like a smaller version of Jurassic World in a way, so I pulled a lot of inspiration from that map. And I explained that all in the time lapse. I just kind of basically pulled from it. The first ride, actually no, this was the first ride I installed. And then it kind of just expanded this way to this coaster. This is the Compy Escape, or whatever I'm going to call it. I don't really have a name for it. Maybe it's called Compy Escape, but hey. The building represents the main building from the movie, kind of in its own way. I pulled a lot of information actually from Jurassic World Evolution. So that was quite easy. I used a lot of that, which was kind of the point. So let's ride this ride first, actually. So this is actually a pretty cute little junior coaster. It's actually quite large to be a junior coaster. So there's a lot of space taken up, but I wanted to give it some space and some fence designing, all that cool stuff, or just detailing. I made this heavily detailed again. At this point, being 5 campaign maps in, I've designed how many junior coasters? At least 5 now. Almost every map at this point has a junior coaster, I think. No, not Western Roundup. It has a Wilderness, not a junior. But junior coasters are fun to build. They're not too difficult to build, but they also can be very, very boring to build. So I usually try to theme them as best I can. So there you go. There's the first roller coaster, the junior coaster. And then as I was expanding the park this way, I built these. This is kind of a resemblance of the old park in a way, kind of like Jurassic Park would be. And I made a log ride. So this is based off of the Jurassic Park River Adventure at Universal's, kind of just a copy, a rip-off. Again, most of this park was a rip-off of a lot of things, but that was kind of the point, was to do kind of my own versions of the park and doing my little twist on them, and then just kind of doing it in vanilla and see what I could pull off. And I'm quite surprised how detailed I can pull it off, actually. Just that's the basic thought. I like this little technique that I figured out, was using these, what are these called? Tilia bushes to fill in the copa. I think they're called copa or poke trees, whatever they're called. I don't know. These are some fancy trees. These are like jungle trees. This is interesting how to use them as filler, and it actually worked out because they moved too. So I was actually quite surprised how well that turns out, and it just looks very full, very forest-like. And we did build one dinosaur. I honestly wanted to build more dinosaurs, but with the restriction of how vanilla is, it's really hard to make creatures. I have to make giant creatures, so this is a Brachiosaurus. And then the last addition to this park was the poor man's version of a Velocicoaster. So I did need one more coaster in this park. I forgot to even mention the Triceratops Arcade, which houses the Dodgems. So yeah, I built that. That was cool. But back to the Velocicoaster. So this is just my knockoff version of Velocicoaster. Kind of my own version. And it worked out. I'm surprised how well everything fits into this area. I know that the edge of the park actually is further out. You could, technically speaking, flatten the park and then build your park. But I wanted to keep the landscape pretty accurate, and I kind of like the idea of it being a crater that fitting for the Jurassic Park, Jurassic World theme. So I'm quite happy how this looks. Let's ride this coaster. This is the Velocicoaster, which I didn't even name it Velocicoaster, but that's okay. So it just does a regular launch, does 2 inversions, and then just weaves in and out of these rockworks. I really like the interaction that this coaster does, actually. Yeah, the weaving in and out, and then the close interactions with the paths and the little gates that are like revealing. And then just I did a simple turnaround in underground because I couldn't find another way to do it out of it. So it was easier just to do it underground stuff. Honestly, that actually works out for this park, or this ride in particular. But at this point, this is the most compact part so far in the campaign. Not a lot of space is wasted, only in some areas like here and here, but that's because I wanted this to be more of an exhibit. I'm glad I put this flat right in at the last second. This was needed. I'm so glad I did that, actually. But yeah, here's Coral Caldera, or Jurassic Kingdom, is my knockoff name, so let's just say Happy Kogat to it. And here's the park so far in its glory. Actually, let's go see what it looks like at nighttime. I keep forgetting that nighttime exists. So nighttime seems to be very generic, very basic stuff that you do. Actually, I should put some more lights over here. It's not important to me. I don't necessarily need to, but I did some lighting here, and then the triggers on all the fences are all done by controllers. I'm glad that that exists in this game now, because we didn't have that before. But yeah, there's nighttime. I want to thank my patrons for the continued support. If you want to support me on Patreon, you can. There's a link in the description below. And we're going to continue on the campaign. We'll just continue plowing through these. And let's go see what the map is going to look like. Let's go save. Now, little disclaimer, well, a disclaimer or an accident happened. So when I was playing this map, I accidentally saved the park when I beated the goals, and the animation for it already happened, and I missed it. I didn't record that section. So the trophy we get is the lighthouse, and so then this appeared and then went around, and then we gave us 2 options. So we could either go Mystic Oasis or Nova Labs. And I'm not really sure which one we should touch. Technically speaking, Mystic Oasis is the next progression because it has 400 guests, and this one's at 500 guests. So technically speaking, it should be this one. Why does it say continue? I must have did that before. So we're gonna go do Mystic Oasis next, probably. Yep. And see what are the goals. 475. Yeah, we're gonna do Mystic Oasis. So something very, I don't know, Egyptian themed. Cairo, Indiana Jones. Ooh, Indiana Jones. We can do an Indiana Jones theme. Or something like that. Again, I'm doing all these movie IPs. It's funny. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next episode. See you in Mystic Oasis. Bye.